Alright, so in this video, if you watched the previous, we found Visual Studio Code through Google, downloaded it, installed it, all that good stuff, got it up and running. And at the end of it, I said that if you want to get like really, really serious coding or whatever, it's not necessary, but it's highly recommended that you get what's called Git. Git, yeah, funny. You install Git or GitHub. So if you click this little button, which I already did, it will take you to this page telling you Git, local branching, getting started, blah, 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 blah. Um, but I don't find this particular web page very useful. Um, but if you go to this URL, which I'll put down in the description, I think it provides much better instructions on what needs to happen in order to get Git downloaded on your system. So navigate to the latest Git for Windows installer and download the latest version. So I'll open that in a new tab. We bring the awesome Git to Windows. Beautiful. Um, Go ahead and download. Contributing is always great because this is, again, all open source, but not required. We can go ahead and close that window. Again, go to this and go to our downloads folder, and there's Git 64-bit for Windows. Um, Git is also available on Mac. It's available on Windows, available on Linux. But again, this is all just a Windows demonstration. So go ahead and run the application. Run. Yes, we trust Git. It'll take a second to think about what it's done. Git for Windows. Yep, that's what I want. General public license, just letting you know, hey, this is open source, blah, 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 whatever. Destination, keep that default. Windows Explorer, Git Bash here, blah, blah, blah. Check daily for Git for Windows updates. That's always a good thing. That's not necessary, not needed. Additional icons if you want it on the desktop. Again, not necessary. Git Bash is pretty nice. I think it'll give us an option here in a second. Again, don't want to start menu folder, but that's completely optional. As Git's default editor. So Git kind of works in most instances from a command line, kind of as if you're using Linux. So if you're using Linux, you can really use whatever text editor you want if you're doing stuff from the command line. We won't really be doing much code editing from the command line, but Vim is usually the default editor. Visual Studio Code is the default editor. That's usually a good option. Notepad, Atom, Sublime, blah, 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 blah. But since we won't be doing much of that, we can just leave it as Vim. That's no big deal. Adjusting the name of the initial branch. Let Git decide. Usually Git knows better than you do. Git from the command line, it's recommended, so we're going to go ahead and just leave that as is. Use bundled OpenSSH. Yep, keep that as default. Most of these you'll just want to keep as default. They're the recommended default options for a reason. Commit Unix style line endings. Yep, sounds good. This doesn't matter to Git Bash. We'll use Minty as a terminal emulator. Good. Choose the default behavior of Git pull, fast forward or merge, rebase, only ever fast forward. Just keep it fast forward or merge. Credential manager, yes. File system caching, yes. Experimental support, built-in file, whatever. These are both new, so install at your own discretion, and then let it do its thing. This one might take a little bit longer than VS Code, just because there's a lot going on here, but it still shouldn't take all that long. It's just got a lot of files, especially just with how robust and handy and useful it is for everything. It's got a lot to do. Okay, so it completed. We don't really care about viewing the release notes. And it installed something called Git Bash, which is really handy. It's my personal preferencing way to use Git, but again, it's not exactly necessary. I'll go ahead and launch Git Bash just to kind of show you what it is. So Git Bash is essentially a, a command line tool or a command prompt tool exclusively for Git. Um, it's handy for when managing Git. It can be a little complicated because it's kind of like using Linux. You have to remember certain commands, remember certain formats, when there's definitely easier ways you can do it, but it all works out the same. But yeah, so that'll be it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.